आकर्षण गराउन पनि चाहन्छु। 2070 साल मक्सिर 23 गते गण्डकी प्रदेशको पहिलो र लोकप्रिय रेफरेन्स ल्याबको रूपमा युनाइटेड रेफरेन्स ल्याबोरेटरी प्राइभेट लिमिटेड पोखरा 8 न्यू रोडमा स्थापना भई गण्डकी प्रदेशका विभिन्न स्थानहरूबाट सेवा दिइरहेको जानकारी गराउन चाहन्छौँ। यसै सन्दर्भमा यस युनाइटेड रेफरेन्स ल्याबोरेटरी आज हामी यस वर्ष चाहिँ 9 वर्ष पुरा गरेर 9th एनिभर्सरी मनाइरहेका पनि छौँ र सोही सन्दर्भमा चाहिँ एनिभर्सरी मनाइरहने सन्दर्भ सँगसँगै सामाजिक उत्तरदायित्व वहन गर्ने अनुरूप हामीले चाहिँ आज एउटा विशेष प्रकारको एउटा केही महत्त्वपूर्ण विषयहरूमा सिएमई कार्यक्रमको पनि आयोजना गरेका छौँ र यहाँ पाल्नुहुने सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरूलाई पुनः रात्रिकालीन नमस्कार सन्ध्याकालीन नमस्कार टक्राउँदै आजको यस औपचारिक कार्यक्रमको सुरुवात गर्न गइरहेका छौँ र कार्यक्रम हामी त्यति लामो गर्ने पक्षमा छँदै छैनौँ। म हजुरलाई पुनः निवेदन गर्न चाहेँ र विशेष गरी आजको यस कार्यक्रममा दुईवटा प्रमुख विषयहरूमा इनपुट सेसन रहने हुँदा विशेष गरी दुईवटा इम्पोर्टेन्ट सब्जेक्टमा चाहिँ सेसन रहने हुँदा यस कार्यक्रममा सम्बन्धित विशेषज्ञहरू चिकित्सक हामीसँग दुईजना आदरणीय अग्रज चिकित्सकज्यूहरू हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँहरूको अध्यक्षतामा हामी यस कार्यक्रम संयुक्त रूपमा अध्यक्षता ग्रहण गरेर यस कार्यक्रमलाई अगाडि बढाउन चाहन्छौँ। विशेष गरी आजको यस कार्यक्रमको अध्यक्षता ग्रहण गरिदिनु हुनको लागि आदरणीय प्राध्यापक डाक्टर बुद्धिबहादुर थापा जो एमडी FRCP चिफ कन्सल्टेन्ट फिजिसियन एवं पोखरा स्वास्थ्य विज्ञान प्रतिष्ठानका संस्थापक उपकुलपति पनि हुनुहुन्छ। हामीमाझ हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँलाई अगाडि आएर चियरिङ गरिदिनुको लागि म हार्दिक अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। सँगसँगै हामीसँग आदरणीय प्राध्यापक डाक्टर गिरिधारी शर्मा एमडी IVF स्पेसलिस्ट आदरणीय डाक्टर साहब हामीसँग हुनुहुन्छ। वरिष्ठ स्त्री तथा प्रसुति रोग विशेषज्ञ साथै अफिम गण्डकीका आदरणीय अध्यक्ष पनि हुनुहुन्छ। आदरणीय डाक्टर साहब गिरिधारी शर्माज्यूलाई पनि अगाडि आएर चियरिङ गरिदिनुको लागि चाहिँ म हार्दिक अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। उहाँलाई संयुक्त रूपमा अध्यक्षता ग्रहण गरिदिनुपर्ने अनुरोध गर्दै कार्यक्रमलाई अगाडि बढाउने पनि अनुमति माग्दै अगाडि बढाउन चाहन्छु। हुन्छ। यसै गरी हामीसँग चाहिँ युनाइटेड रेफरेन्स ल्याबोरेटरीका आदरणीय अध्यक्ष ठाकुर प्रसाद पन्तज्यू हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँलाई अगाडि आएर आसन गर्नको लागि म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। सँगसँगै आज विशेष प्रेजेन्टरको रूपमा हाम्रो नियुक्तालाई चाहिँ निमन्त्रणालाई सहर्ष स्वीकार गरेर आउनुभएका प्रेजेन्टरहरू हुनुहुन्छ। म क्रमशः उहाँहरूलाई आसन ग्रहणको लागि म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। सर्वप्रथम डाक्टर भूषण नागपुरे हुन्छ, प्लिज स्टेजमा आएर आसन ग्रहणको लागि म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। मिस्टर विष्णु सक्तावत ज्यूलाई पनि म आसन गर्न चाहन्छु र सँगसँगै हाम्रो सुशील थापा सर हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँलाई पनि अगाडि आएर आसन ग्रहणको लागि म हार्दिक अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। सर प्लिज। कार्यक्रममा आसन ग्रहणकै कार्यक्रमलाई अगाडि बढाउन चाहन्छु। यसै गरी हामीसँग URL का सञ्चालकज्यूहरू म यहाँ देखिरहेको छु। सञ्चालकज्यूहरू आदरणीय हाम्रो गीता कार्की म्याडम यथास्थानमा आसन ग्रहणको लागि अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। डाक्टर बसन्त पमिनी यथास्थानमा आसन ग्रहणको लागि अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। निर्मल सरलाई म देखिरहेको छु, यथास्थानमा आसन ग्रहणको लागि अनुरोध चाहन्छु। सँगसँगै रङ्गनाथ रेग्मी सरलाई पनि म देखिरहेको छु, आसन ग्रहणको लागि अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। रामबहादुर केसी सरलाई पनि म देखिरहेको छु, उहाँलाई पनि आसन ग्रहणको लागि अनुरोध गर्न चाहेँ। शशिधर पौडेल सरलाई पनि म देखिरहेको छु, आसन ग्रहणको लागि अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। मायादेवी शर्माज्यूलाई पनि म यहाँ देखिरहेको छु, आसन ग्रहणको लागि अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। सँगसँगै मणि नेपाली सरलाई पनि म देखिरहेको छु, यथास्थानमा आसन ग्रहणको लागि अनुरोध गर्न चाहेँ। हामी सञ्चालकको तर्फबाट सबैजनालाई आसन ग्रहण गराउन चाहन्छौँ। र सँगसँगै हामीसँग चाहिँ युनाइटेड रेफरेन्स ल्याबोरेटरीको प्राविधिक प्रमुख टेक्निकल हेडको रूपमा काम गरिरहनु हुने मेडिकल बायोकेमिस्ट भूपेन्द्र रेग्मीजी हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँलाई आसन ग्रहणको लागि म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। र सँगसँगै अन्य कर्मचारी मित्रहरूलाई पनि यथास्थानमा आसन ग्रहण गर्न चाहन्छु। विभिन्न विषयगत विशेषज्ञहरू आदरणीय डाक्टर साहबहरू पनि म देखिरहेको छु र उपस्थित हुनुभएका सम्पूर्ण डाक्टर साहबहरू लगायत सम्पूर्ण उपस्थित महानुभावहरूलाई यथास्थानमा आसन ग्रहणको लागि म सम्झन चाहेँ। र सँगसँगै टेलिभिजन छापा अनलाइन मिडियाबाट पाल्नुहुने पत्रकारज्यूहरूलाई पनि यथास्थानमा आसन ग्रहणको लागि म सम्झन चाहेँ। र सम्पूर्ण महिला तथा सञ्चालन सम्पूर्णलाई चाहिँ यथास्थानमा आसन ग्रहणको लागि म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु र कार्यक्रमलाई अगाडि बढाउन चाहन्छु। हामी छोटो रूपमा अगाडि बढाउन गइरहेका छौँ। यसै क्रममा कार्यक्रममा अब समय भएको छ, राष्ट्रिय गानको समय भएको छ। सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरूलाई यथास्थानबाट उठेर राष्ट्रिय गानमा सरिक भइदिनु हुन म हार्दिक गर्न चाहन्छु। त्यस्तो प्रोग्राम केही पनि छैन। हामीसँग प्रेजेन्टरज्यूहरू हुनुहुन्छ, उहाँहरूको हामी डाइरेक्ट प्रेजेन्टेसनमा जान्छौँ। त्यसभन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ आजको यस कार्यक्रममा पाल्नु हुने सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरूलाई विशेष गरी स्वागत, सँगसँगै आजको यस कार्यक्रमको उद्देश्य औचित्यतामाथि प्रकाश पारिदिनु लागि चाहिँ यस युनाइटेड रेफरेन्स ल्याबोरेटरी प्राइभेट लिमिटेडका आदरणीय अध्यक्ष ठाकुर प्रसाद पन्तज्यूलाई म हार्दिक अनुरोध चाहन्छु।
बनाए तापनि हामीले यो विषयलाई पनि हामीले सधैँ प्रत्येक वर्ष एउटा न एउटा कार्यक्रम गर्ने भन्ने हामीले तपाईँको विगत 9 वर्षदेखि नै गर्दै आइरहेको सन्दर्भमा हामीले पोहोरबाट चाहिँ अलि विशेष तरिकाले यो विभिन्न किसिमका यो रोगको विषयमा गरिने जाँचका टेस्ट गरेर र अनि प्रविधिको विषयमा जुन हामीले एउटा भनौँ न सिएमई मार्फत दिने आउने भन्ने जमर्को गर्दै आएका थियौँ। त्यसै सन्दर्भमा आज हामीले विदेश मतलब बम्बईबाट यो रस डायबिटिस रूपमा आबद्ध प्राविधिकहरूलाई बोलाएर यो कार्डियक मार्कर र यो फिमेलहरूमा हुने विशेष गरी यो फर्टिलिटी सम्बन्धीको विशेष जानकारी साथै यो रस डायटको बारेमा पनि जानकारी गर्ने उद्देश्यले आज हामीले यो कार्यक्रम गर्न गइरहेका छौँ। यस कार्यक्रममा उपस्थित यस प्राविधिक विषय भएको हामीले अन्य भाषाहरूभन्दा पनि विशेष यो भनौँ न सिएमईलाई नितान्त प्राविधिक रूपले चाहिँ जोड्न खोजिरहेका छौँ। यस कार्यक्रममा यो आजको 2टा सेसन भएको कारणले गर्दाखेरि 2टा विषयमा आज हामीले प्राविधिक रूपमा हामीले त्यसलाई जानकारी गराउने उद्देश्य भएको कारणले आज हामीले यो फर्टिलिटी सम्बन्धी र यो विशेष फिसियरको क्षेत्र भएको कारणले गर्दा पनि हामीले यो कार्डियक मार्करको यी 2टै विषयमा हाम्रो सिएमई भएको कारणले गर्दा यी विषयमा सम्बन्धित 2जना चिकित्सक हाम्रो आजका प्राप्त डाक्टर बुद्धिबहादुर थापा जो चिफ कन्सल्टेन्ट फिसियर पनि हुनुहुन्छ र यो पोखरा सर्टिफिकेट प्रतिष्ठानको संस्थापक कुलपति पनि हुनुहुन्छ र त्यसै गरी अर्का हाम्रा अध्यक्ष हुनुहुन्छ हाम्रो प्राध्यापक डाक्टर गिरिधारी शर्मा जो धेरै लामो समयदेखि यो फर्टिलिटी सम्बन्धी आफ्नो विज्ञता हासिल गरी सेवा दिँदै आउनुभएको छ र भर्खरै मात्रै यो निजी अस्पताल एसोसिएसन जसलाई हामीले अफिम पनि भन्छौँ त्यसको अध्यक्ष पनि हुनुहुन्छ र उहाँलाई म यो सन्दर्भमा बधाई पनि दिन चाहन्छु। र त्यसै गरी आज यस 2टा सेसनमा र आफू क्वालिटीको विषय पनि गरेर हाम्रो 3जना चाहिँ हाम्रो आजको यो विषयसँग सम्बन्धित स्पिकर हुनुहुन्छ। हाम्रो यो कार्डियक र यो फर्टिलिटी सम्बन्धीको विषयमा बोल्दै हुनुहुन्छ डाक्टर विष्णु पुरे। त्यसै गरी हाम्रा विष्णु जो रस डायग्नोसिसको विषयमा बोल्दै हुनुहुन्छ र क्वालिटी म्यानेजमेन्टको विषयमा चाहिँ क्वालिटीमा 6 सिग्मा ब्ल्याक बेल्ट हासिल गरिसक्नुभएका हाम्रा क्वालिटी विज्ञ सुजी थापा हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँहरू सबैलाई म यो संस्थाको तर्फबाट साथै मेरो व्यक्तिगत तर्फबाट म स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु। साथै विभिन्न हस्पिटल पोलिक्लिनिकमा आबद्ध विभिन्न विषयमा विशिष्टता हासिल गर्नुभएका दर्शकहरू हुनुहुन्छ। सम्पूर्ण दर्शकहरूलाई लगायत संस्थाका कर्मचारी भाइ बहिनी लगायत कर्मचारी सिआरदानी सम्पूर्णलाई पनि म संस्थाको तर्फबाट लगायत मेरो व्यक्तिगत तर्फबाट म स्वागत गर्न चाहन्छु। र हामीले यो स्वास्थ्यमा त्यसमा पनि यो डायग्नोस्टिकको पार्टमा हामीले यो गण्डकी प्रदेशमा एउटा अभिभावकको भूमिका निर्वाह गर्नुपर्छ। क्वालिटी रिपोर्ट जेनेरेट कसरी गर्न सकिन्छ, कस्तो प्रविधि, कस्तो म्यान पावर र कस्तो ट्रेनिङ आवश्यक पर्छ भन्ने कुरालाई नेपालमा मात्रै होइन विदेशमा पनि गएर धेरै अनुभव गरेर आइसकेका छौँ। र हामीले कुनै पनि कटिङ एजको मेसिनहरू या म्यान पावरहरू या त्यो सम्बन्धित ट्रेनिङहरूलाई हामीले जुन इन्टरनेसनल जगतमा जसरी हामीलाई उपलब्ध हुन्छ त्यो चाहिँ नेपालमा पनि हामीले त्यसमा पनि पोखरामा हामीले त्यसलाई तत्काल हामीले त्यसलाई चाहिँ सिएमईको मार्फतबाट हुन्छ कि अथवा अन्य ट्रेनिङको मार्फत हुन्छ हामीले जोड्नुपर्छ। र जबसम्म हामीले क्वालिटी रिपोर्ट जेनेरेट गर्न सक्दैनौँ तबसम्म डायग्नोस्टिकको पार्ट चाहिँ अधुरै रहन्छ। जबसम्म हामीले क्वालिटीलाई हामीले ध्यान दिँदैनौँ, हामीले गरेका कति रिपोर्टहरू भनौँ न त्यो चाहिँ हामीले जुन सोचेर दर्शकलाई सपोर्टको रूपमा हामीले चाहिँ हेल्प गरिरहेका हुन्छौँ, तर यदि हामीले नेगेटिभ तरिकाले चाहिँ हामीले त्यो रिपोर्ट जेनेरेट गरियो अथवा क्वालिटीलाई हामीले ध्यान दिएनौँ भने त्यसले मान्छेको ज्यानमै तलमाथि पार्छ र उपचारको पद्धतिमै त्यसले चाहिँ भनौँ न एउटा गलत नतिजा ल्याउँछ। त्यस कारणले गर्दा हामीले युआरएले आजभन्दा 10 वर्ष अगाडि अथवा 2070 सालदेखि नै हामीले जुन रससँग वर्ल्डकै नम्बर 1 यो डायग्नोस्टिक पार्टमा जुन एउटा मेसिन छ रस, त्यसै गरी अन्य मेसिनहरूलाई हामीले तत्कालै हामीले पोखरामा उपलब्ध गराएर हामीले त्यो सम्बन्धी भनौँ न प्रविधिसँग यहाँका म्यान पावरसँग हामीले ट्रेनिङ गराएर जसरी हामीले सुरुवात गऱ्यौँ, यो सुरुवातको वर्षदेखि नै हामीलाई यो क्वालिटी मेन्टेनमा हामीलाई अलिकति बढी चनाखो र अलिकति चुनौती पनि थियो। र हामीले धेरै पटक यहाँ आज सुशील थापा सर हुनुहुन्छ जो यो युआरएलको परिकल्पनाकार पनि हुनुहुन्छ, हामीलाई सुरुदेखि नै एउटा सल्लाहकारको र एउटा अभिभावकको जुन तरिकाले हामीलाई यो ठाउँमा ल्याउनु भयो भनेर म युआरएलको संस्थाको तर्फबाट पनि र मेरो व्यक्तिगतमा हृदयदेखि नै म एकदमै धन्यवाद दिन चाहन्छु। र आज यो 10औं वर्ष पुरा गरेर 9 वर्ष पुरा गरेर 10औं वर्ष लाग्ने यो सन्दर्भमा पनि हामीले यो भनौँ न सिएमई चाहिँ हामीले कुन विषयमा चाहिँ राख्दा राम्रो होला भनेर भन्छ सल्लाह दिँदाखेरि अहिलेको यो पछिल्लो पिरियडमा यो मान्छेको खानपिनदेखि लिएर अलिक यो पछि यो कोभिड-19 को यो महामारीपछि त झन् यो मुटुसँग सम्बन्धित र अहिले यो पछिल्लो चरणमा चाहिँ यो फिमेलहरूमा भएको फर्टिलिटी, मेलमा भएको यो फर्टिलिटीको समस्या बढी भएको कारणले यी दुईटा विषयलाई जोड दिएको र यो पछि कटिङ एजको विषयमा पनि धेरै जाँचहरू आइसकेका छन्। रसले पनि धेरै त्यस्ता महत्त्वपूर्ण टेस्टहरू चाहिँ सञ्चालन गरिसकेको छ। त्यस्ता नयाँ टेस्टहरूको बारेमा पनि हामीले जानकारी गरौँ भन्ने विषयमा हामीले छलफल भएर ठिक छ त्यही विषय पनि हामीले यो वर्षको सिएमईमा चाहिँ उहाँलाई एउटा भौतिक रूपमै यहाँ उपस्थित गराएर हामीले चाहिँ उहाँहरूबाट एउटा प्रेजेन्टेसन गराएर यहाँ जुन विभिन्न क्षेत्रका विज्ञ चिकित्सकहरू हुनुहुन्छ उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ यो सिएमई मार्फत चाहिँ धेरै कुराहरू चाहिँ जानकारी गराउनुपर्छ भन्ने उद्देश्यले हामीले यो कार्यक्रम गऱ्यौँ। हुन त अब युआरएले धेरै त्यस्ता भनौँ न कर्मचारीलाई 3 महिनामा 6 महिनामा 1 वर्षमा त्यस्ता धेरै तालिमहरू त गरिरहेको छ, तर पनि दर्शकहरूलाई पनि उहाँहरूको चाहिँ अब सल्लाह उहाँको सुझाव अनुसार हामीले नयाँ त्यस्ता चाहिँ प्रविधिहरू आइरहेका हुन्छन्, टेस्टहरू आइरहेका हुन्छन्। त्यसको विषय पनि हामीले जानकारी पाउँदा राम्रो पनि हुन्थ्यो। तपाईँहरूले चाहिँ त्यो काम चाहिँ गर्नुपर्छ भनेर धेरै पटक हामीलाई धर्जक गर्नुभयो। यहाँ यो चिफ कन्सल्टेन्ट श्री बुद्ध प्रसाद आचार्य पनि हुनुहुन्छ, उहाँले पनि धेरै पटक हामीलाई त्यो कुरो जानकारी गराउनुहुन्छ, सल्लाह दिनुहुन्छ। हाम्रो यहाँ हुनुहुन्छ हाम्रो विभिन्न क्षेत्रका त्यस्ता विज्ञ दर्शक मैले देखिरहेको छु जसले युवाले धेरै राम्रो क्वालिटी युक्त रिपोर्ट प्राप्त गर्नको लागि तालिमदेखि त्यता सेमिनार गोष्ठीहरू बेला आयोजना गर्नुपर्छ। त्यसमा पनि यस्तो तरिकाले जाँदा राम्रो हुन्छ भनेर जुन सल्लाह र सुझाव दिइरहनुहुन्छ हामी त्यो उहाँको त्यो सुझाव त्यो सल्लाहलाई हामी असाध्यै यो हृदयदेखि नै एकदम चाहिँ सम्मान र ग्रहण गरिरहेका छौँ। हाम्रो यहीँ डाक्टर रामचन्द्र वास्तवमा पनि हुनुहुन्छ त्यो यो पिजिआइटीमा अब लामो समय चाहिँ अभ्यास गर्दै उहाँले पनि धेरै टेस्टहरू चाहिँ यहाँ इन्ट्रोड्युस गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने सन्दर्भमा हामीले अहिले पछिल्लो चरणमा आउँदै गरेको चैत 15 गतेबाट हामीले यो आरटिपिसिआर त्यसमा पनि हेपाटाइटिस बी सी एचआइभी त्यसै गरेर टिबी पिसिआर अनेक धेरै रोगका परीक्षण विधिमा हामीले आरटिपिसिआर माध्यमबाट चाहिँ यहीँ गएर जुन निदानको यो डायग्नोस्टिक मात्र चाहिँ सुरु गर्नुपर्छ भनेर चाहिँ आउँदो चैत 15 गतेबाट चाहिँ हामीले हस्पिटल चोकको शाखाबाट चाहिँ यो आरटिपिसिआरको सेवालाई पनि सुरु गर्दैछौँ। र त्यसै गरी हामीले यो भर्खरै हामीले यो पोखरा स्वास्थ्य विज्ञान प्रतिष्ठानमा जुन यो हाम्रो जुन किडनीकोदेखि लिएर अन्य अङ्गहरूको जुन प्रकारमा सुरु भइसकेको छ त्यससँग डाइरेक्ट सम्बन्धी हुने एउटा ट्याक्रुम ड्रग लेभल पनि हामीले गर्नुपर्छ। यहाँबाट काठमाडौँ आउँदा धेरै गाह्रो हुन्छ। त्यस कारण यो चाहिँ पोखरा स्वास्थ्य विज्ञान प्रतिष्ठानमा यो भनौँ न प्रत्यारोपण सुरु हुन लागिरहेको छ भन्ने थाहा पाएपछि हामीले विगत 1 वर्षभन्दा पहिलेदेखि नै यो ट्याक्रुम जाँच चाहिँ हामीले सुरु गरिसकेका छौँ। त्यो पनि हामी रस मेसिनबाटै गर्छौँ। त्यसले गर्दा सुरुमा यो ट्रान्सप्लान्ट गरेका बिरामीहरूलाई सुरुमा दैनिक रूपमा गर्नुपर्ने कहिले हप्तामा गर्नुपर्ने 15 दिनमा गर्नुपर्ने यी सुविधाहरू पनि हामीले यहीँबाट दिनुपर्छ भन्ने हिसाबले चाहिँ सुरु गरिसकेका छौँ। र यस्तो हामीले धेरै परीक्षणहरू डाक्टर साहबको सुझाव सल्लाह अनुसार हामी त्यसलाई समय अनुकूल हामीले त्यस्ता टेस्टहरूलाई चाहिँ यहाँ थप्दै जानेछौँ भन्ने भनौँ न विश्वास पनि दिलाउन चाहन्छु। जसरी युवाले आज यत्रो जम्मै भनौँ न सेवा गरेको चिकित्सकहरूको लगायत स्वास्थ्यकर्मी सबैको एउटा चाहिँ सल्लाह र सुझावको कारणले नै आज हामीले गण्डकी प्रदेशमा भित्र चाहिँ 13वटा शाखा विस्तार गरिसकेका छौँ। र कालान्तरमा हामीले त्यस्ता दुर्गम ठाउँमा जहाँ सेवा गरेर पोखरादेखि आएर एउटा सामान्य परीक्षण गर्नको लागि पनि धेरै खर्च व्यय पर्ने आवश्यकतालाई हामीले चाहिँ निरूप पार्ने उद्देश्यले अब विगतको चाहिँ हामीले आउँदा दिनहरूमा पनि बालुङदेखि बुद्धिबाग र विगत ठाउँमा पनि हामीले ल्याबहरूलाई स्थापना गरेर कति जाँच त्यहाँ गर्न सकिन्छ त्यही गर्ने नभए पनि हामीले पोखरासम्म ल्याएर पनि रिपोर्ट चाहिँ मेल मार्फत उपलब्ध गरेर छिटो एउटा चाहिँ निदानको विषयलाई चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ सल्भ गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने उद्देश्यले चाहिँ हामीले त्यसलाई पनि जबरन गरेका छौँ। र आज हामीले धेरै कुरा नगरिकन अब आज त विशेष गरेर आजका वक्ताहरू हुनुहुन्छ यो डाक्टर साहब हुनुहुन्छ, त्यसै गरी डाक्टर हुनुहुन्छ, त्यसै गरी हाम्रो विष्णु हुनुहुन्छ र हाम्रो क्वालिटी विज्ञ सुशील सर हुनुहुन्छ। उहाँले नै आज विशेष धेरै कुराहरू हाल्नुहुनेछ। मैले सर्टकटमा मैले युवाहरूको एउटा सामान्य परिचय र एउटा चाहिँ स्वागत गर्ने एउटा चाहिँ समय चाहिँ तपाईँहरूको लिएको छु। त्यसलाई चाहिँ म हृदयदेखि नै त्यसको गर्नुभएकोमा चाहिँ धन्यवाद दिँदै फेरि पनि यहाँ पाल्नुहुने सम्पूर्ण चिकित्सक लगायत अन्य महानुभावलाई स्वागत गर्दै मेरो मन्तव्य यहीँ अन्त गर्छु।
धन्यवाद आदरणीय ठाकुर सरलाई। अब हामी नेक्स्ट स्टेसनतिर जान गइरहेका छौँ। सरले अघि नै पनि निवेदन गरिसक्नुभयो। युनाइटेड रेफरेन्स ल्याबोरेटरी यस क्षेत्रमा स्थापित भइसके पछाडि चाहिँ आफ्नो सेवा सुविधाहरू विस्तार गर्ने क्रममा आज हामी 9 वर्ष पार पुरा गरेर 10औं वर्षमा लागिरहेका छौँ। र आजसम्म आइपुग्दाखेरि चाहिँ गण्डकी प्रदेशका विभिन्न जिल्लाहरूमा 13वटा कम्प्लिट फुल फ्लेजका ल्याबहरूबाट चाहिँ हामीले सेवा प्रदान गरिरहेका छौँ भने 7-8 ठाउँमा चाहिँ कलेक्सन सेन्टरको रूपमा रहेर पनि सेवा प्रदान गरिरहेका छौँ। र हाम्रो सेवा विशेष गरी यो गण्डकी प्रदेशको विभिन्न जिल्लाहरूमा फैलिरहेको हजुरलाई निवेदन गर्न चाहन्छौँ। र करिब 125 जना जति कर्मचारीहरू हामीसँग काम कार्यरत हुनुहुन्छ। र यति धेरै ल्याबलाई चाहिँ अपरेसन गर्दै गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामीले ल्याबको क्वालिटीलाई चाहिँ मेन्टेन गरिरहनको लागि चाहिँ बायोकेमिस्ट 3 जना बायोकेमिस्टहरूको एउटा चाहिँ टेक्निकल प्यानल बनाएका छौँ। उहाँहरूले चाहिँ टाइम एन्ड अगेन सम्बन्धित ठाउँहरूमा जाने, भिजिट गर्ने, क्रस चेकहरू गर्ने, रिपोर्टहरूलाई चाहिँ एकरूपता ल्याउन र मसिनहरूको सही प्रयोग भएको छ कि छैन भनेर हेर्ने मोनिटर गर्ने काम एउटा रहन्छ भने अघि ठाकुर सरले भने जस्तो बेला बेलामा हाम्रा स्टाफहरू इन्चार्जहरूलाई चाहिँ 3 महिना 6 महिनामा चाहिँ फिजिकली उपस्थिति गराएर ट्रेनिङ गराउने पनि हाम्रो खालको रहन्छ र अनि विभिन्न खालका इन्टरनल क्युसी र एक्सटर्नल क्युसीको चाहिँ रेकर्डहरू राख्ने त्यसलाई हेर्ने चिजहरू यसरी एउटा मेकानिजम बनाएर एउटा क्वालिटीको कुरा पक्कै पनि चुनौतीपूर्ण रहन्छ त्यो कुरालाई चाहिँ मेन्टेन गर्ने प्रयास पनि हामीले गरिरहेको कुराहरू निवेदन गर्न चाह्यौँ। अब कार्यक्रमको हामी दोस्रो सेसनमा गइरहेका छौँ र यसमा मेन कार्यक्रमतर्फ अगाडि बढाइरहेका छौँ। यस सिएमई प्रोग्रामको चाहिँ कम्प्लिट रूपमा अगाडि बढाइदिनु हुनको लागि चाहिँ अहिलेको यस कार्यक्रम यस फ्लोरमा आजका यस चेयरिङ गरिरहनु हुने आदरणीय द्वय डाक्टर साहबहरूलाई चाहिँ अनुरोध गर्दै यो फ्लोर चाहिँ उहाँहरूलाई म ह्यान्डओभर गर्छु।
Pansa. First of all, I like to welcome all of you to this CME. On the behalf of our chair and our speaker, first of all, I would like to congratulate Mr. Thakur Panta, chair of the United Laboratory, his whole team, for successfully completing 9 years of their service to this area, pokhara, and to the mankind. From here, I am seeing the floor, lot of senior people. Our ex-director of health is here, and many senior consultants and faculty from different institutes, Octavia Health Science, GMC, Manipal, and many other hospitals are here. And we as a chair, as a speaker, we really feel proud to see you in the as a participant. And we are, after our completion of this CME, we have a good direction also. So without doing any delay, because I love Hapa, will be talking on quality planning and technology URL, and especially Hapa name is nobody in this area. He has been awarded many important and dignified award in quality management system, and most awarded being 6 Sigma Black Belt QMS. So now I request Mr. Sush Hapa not about the provincial government in the field of laboratory science. So I request for his deliberation.
स्टाफहरूको ट्रेनिङ जुन नेपालमा अत्यन्त कम गरिन्छ त्यसमा पनि उहाँले ध्यान दिएको मैले देखेको छु। त्यो सँगसँगै उहाँहरूमा भएको अहिलेको च्यालेन्ज भनेको चाहिँ टेक्नोलोजीको सिलेक्सन हो। अब जति टेस्टहरू बढ्दै जान्छ टेक्नोलोजीको सिलेक्सनमा चाहिँ अलिक कन्फ्युजै हुने अनि त्यसबाट आउने आउटपुटहरूको निगरानीमा चाहिँ अलिकति कम्प्रोमाइज गर्ने चान्सेसहरू बढेर जान्छ। अनि अहिलेको बेलामा क्वालिटी सँगसँगै मिसेर आएको चाहिँ सर्भिसलाई अफोर्डेबल कसरी बनाउने, सर्भिसलाई इक्विटेबल भन्नाले सक्नेको लागि नसक्नेको लागि पनि कसरी बनाउने अनि एक्सेसेबल कसरी बनाउने भन्ने 4-5 वटा कुराहरूलाई चाहिँ उहाँले एकै शब्दमा भन्नुभयो कि खोलेको 9 वर्षमा 13 वटा ब्रान्चहरू भइसक्यो र अफोर्ड गर्न नसक्ने मान्छेहरूको लागि 100 चान्चुन हेल्थ क्याम्पहरू हामीले गरिसक्यौँ भनेर भनिसक्नु भएको छ। सो मेरो विचारमा क्वालिटी कम्पोनेन्टमा चाहिने सबै चिज अलिअलि गरिराख्नु भएको हुनाले म यसलाई अझै बढ्ता गति दिन र कन्सियसली मतलब सोच विचार गरेरै यसमा लागिरहन, किनभने क्वालिटी भनेको त एउटा जर्नी हो, क्वालिटी भनेको त कुनै डेस्टिनेसन होइन। त्यस कारण वी हेभ टु किप अन मेन्टेनिङ द क्वालिटी। मैले अघि भन्नुभयो इन्टरनल क्वालिटी कन्ट्रोल पनि गर्छौँ, त्यस्तै गरी एक्सटर्नल क्वालिटी कन्ट्रोल मा पनि हामीले काम गर्न खोजिराखेका छौँ भनेर भनिरहनु भएको छ। मेरो यति धेरै विज्ञ डाक्टरसाहबहरू र मुम्बईदेखि हामीले इन्भाइट गरेर बोलाएको विज्ञहरूको अगाडि मैले धेरै मेरो समय उहाँको समय लिनुभन्दा म उहाँहरूलाई एक सेन्टेन्समा एउटा सल्लाह दिन चाहन्छु कि अब तपाईहरूले आफ्नो टेक्नोलोजीलाई कन्सोलिडेट गर्ने बेला भयो। विभिन्न खाले इक्विपमेन्टहरू थुपारेर ल्याबोरेटरीले कन्सिस्टेन्ट रिजल्ट दिन सक्दैन। एउटै खालको प्लेटफर्मबाट रिपोर्टहरू दिनुभयो भने त्यो रिपोर्टहरू कन्सिस्टेन्ट हुन्छ, त्यो रिपोर्टहरू रिप्रोड्युसेबल हुन्छ, त्यस्तो रिपोर्टहरू रिपिटेबल हुन्छ। रिप्रोड्युसेबल, रिपिटेबल र एक्युरेट एन्ड प्रिसाइज चाहिँ नि क्वालिटीको 4वटा शब्दहरू हो। त्यो सँगसँगै क्वालिटीले चाहिँ नि टर्नअराउन्ड टाइम यानि कि बिरामीलाई दिने रिपोर्टहरू छिटो दिने कुरामा पनि नजरअन्दाज गर्नुहुन्न। त्यसको लागि यहाँले टेक्नोलोजी सिलेक्सन गर्ने बेलामा थ्रुपुट हेर्नुपर्ने हुन्छ होइन। र ल्याबोरेटरीको सस्टेनेबिलिटीको लागि यहाँहरूले कस्ट डेफिनेटली हेर्नुपर्छ, तर त्यो सँगसँगै क्वालिटी कम्प्रोमाइज हुने गरी कस्टलाई हेर्नुभयो भने तपाईँले 9 वर्षसम्म गर्नुभएको मेहनतले फेरि परालो लाग्न बेर लाग्दैन। यहाँले अहिलेसम्म गर्नुभएको कन्ट्रिब्युसनमा पनि मान्छेले एकैछिनमा बिर्सिन्छन्। राम्रो काम वर्षौँ गर्दा पनि सम्झाउन गाह्रो हुन्छ, नराम्रो काम अलिकति गर्ने बित्तिकै 10औँ वर्षदेखि गरेका काममा चाहिँ मान्छेले गाली गर्छन्। सो यहाँ यस कुरामा यहाँहरू अवगत हुनुहुन्छ र सिरियसली कन्सर्न राख्नुहुन्छ भन्ने आशा गर्दै 9औं एनिभर्सरीको लागि सम्पूर्ण म्यानेजमेन्ट टिम र यो युआरएललाई यति शक्तिशाली र गतिशील बनाउनलाई सहयोग गर्नुहुने डक्टर्स, सर्जन्स र पहिलो दिनदेखि हौसाइरहनु भएका डक्टर बुद्धिबहादुर थापा डाक्टर साहबलाई मेरो मुरी धन्यवाद छ। किनभने फर्चुनेटली यस संस्थाको संस्थापकको रूपमा मैले यो संस्था यति अगाडि बढेको हेर्नु पाउँदा म अत्यन्त खुसी छु। यहाँहरू सबैलाई धन्यवाद। युआरएलको 9औं एनिभर्सरी सहभागी भएर उहाँहरूसँग खुसी साथ दिनुभयो। थ्याङ्क यू सो मच।
Providing quality results to the patients and doctors. I'm introducing about the Roche Diagnostics and what is the history of the Roche Diagnostics, what is the DNA of Roche Diagnostics, and then going into what are our new innovations and how we are continuously trying to bring new assays into clinical practice. Next slide, please. So Roche was established in 1896 in Basel, and it has more than 125 years spent in the service of the patient. So to survive 125 years, not only survive but to grow in the diagnostic industry, which is highly competitive, it takes a lot. Okay, and the most important thing is being an innovator, and Roche is the leading biotech, world's leading biotech company with differentiated assays in oncology, virology, and all the diagnostic fertility. We are almost 30 drugs from Roche are there in the WHO reference list, okay, the essential medicines list, and we are proud to contribute to humanity by introducing 30 novel products. And almost out of the 5 billion revenue, 25% of that is spent into this innovation, and this is a standout feature about Roche because innovation is in the DNA of Roche. Also, in terms of coming to sustainable, Roche is continuously ranked amongst top sustainable companies for 9 years in Dow Jones Sustainability Index. As you can see, innovation is our DNA, and I am proud to share that we are not only the topmost investor into new product R&D and innovation in the sector of healthcare, but across industries we are ranked amongst top. We have assays starting from early detection, diagnostics, therapy, and then in terms of therapy monitoring. Complete care can have assays which contribute to the monitoring the patient status. So in our core clinical laboratory, we have the SWA system, the systems which are take care of the immunology assay and the clinical chemistry assays. In the molecular systems, we have the SARS-CoV-2 PCR assay, because we were the first in the industry to introduce it in response to COVID. So all the molecular assays are available in our system. In the pathology lab, in tissue diagnostics, we have Ventana systems, IHC, immunohistochemistry, companion diagnostics with the drug and the assay, like the Avastin, the PDL1 assays. They go hand in hand in introducing these assays into the clinical practice, these tests into the clinical practice. In the point of care, we have blood gas analyzers, we have the point of care handheld meter for the diabetes monitoring, AccuCheck. So all these devices are there in point of care and all complete our overall. Next slide, please. I would like to introduce you to the latest innovation from Roche. This is our Cobas Pure integrated solution for chemistry and biochemistry. Next slide. So it takes only one tube for the clinical chemistry and immunology assays and one set of results to track one platform. It is an integrated platform for all the immunology assays and clinical chemistry assays. And in terms of the user interface, all the assays and performance can be monitored from one screen. Next slide. So it has a 80% less daily maintenance as compared to the legacy systems, as compared to the competition. So very user-friendly analyzer, only 5 minutes for daily operator intervention, step-by-step guidance for the operator. So all these come very handy. Next slide. It has an auto-calibration feature. So like lot-specific calibration, instrument-specific calibration, all these are handled. And up to 56% less calibration events are there. So this not only saves hands-on time, but the reagent costs associated with frequent calibrations get saved. So this is one of the important features of Cobas Pure Analyzer. Next slide. Also, if we see the onboard stability, which is very important because as the new assays are introduced into clinical practice, the onboard stability becomes very important. So we have average onboard stability of 110 days on our systems, which is like 3 times to the closest competition which is there. Next slide. So we have advanced features in our analyzer like clinical chemistry. So there is a carryover emission program, ultrasonic mixing, liquid level detection, foam detection, clot detection. So this all makes it totally error proof in terms of analyzing the samples, and which is visible in the quality of results which the laboratories and diagnostic centers provide. Next slide, please. The reagents on the Cobas system does not require any pre-preparing, no mixing, no waiting, no pre-opening. So just take them out of the fridge and then load onto the analyzer. Next slide, please. All the reagents are tagged with RFID. So they just need to be scanned on the analyzer and put the analyzer. So all these features come very handy in terms of using the analyzer. The most important part, like as the clinicians, is the assay menu. Okay, the assays which can be introduced onto the analyzer. So I'm very proud that Roche has the largest breadth of assays which is available on our Cobas Pure system. So close to 225 assays which are available, and this is the result of continuous R&D investments which Roche makes. Next slide. So this is our immunology assay menu. So starting from maternal care, critical care, bone markers, all of this, like we have differentiated assays which are there available. Yeah, next slide, please. This is our clinical chemistry assay menu. Again, a very broad assay menu across the segments. It covers all the spectrum of the clinical chemistry menu. We are not only introducing new assays, but doing continuous research, supporting continuous research so that the existing assays have new claims. So like some of those evidences Dr. Bhushan will be going into detail, but I would like to highlight, like on high sensitive troponin T, not only it is a marker of AMI, but there are new evidence which has come which makes this assay for the non-cardiac reasons, and in terms of screening, mass screening of populations, there are a lot of exciting and interesting evidence which Dr. Bhushan will be taking us through. Also in terms of NT-proBNP, it is not only a marker for heart failure, diagnosis, monitoring, discharge planning, but also it has become a very important marker in risk stratification for the type 2 diabetes mellitus patients on early identification of their risk. So again, Dr. Bhushan will be going into in depth of that, but it's not only in terms of introducing new assay, how to make them part of the clinical practice. It is very important. So we have the MSc team which continuously does CME programs, educational programs, paper publications, study publications to ensure that they are widely adopted in the service of the patients. So this is about Roche introduction in our innovation pipeline. Now I invite Dr. Bhushan to take us through the next session about the clinical evidence. Thank you.
He is the manager, medical and scientific affairs, cardio, metabolic and coagulation, Roche's Diagnostic India and the neighboring markets. He has professional experiences of 12 years in academic, research, pharmaceutical and diagnostic industries. He has done MBBS from Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, India, and he has done the clinical PhD in the clinical pharmacology. He has published 350 citations in peer-reviewed PubMed Index journal and 6 original research paper, review article, and book chapters. His area of interest is scientific education and evidence generation initiative for the cardiology disease area. Dr. Bhushan, please deliver your speech.
At the outset, let me congratulate United Reference Laboratories pokhara for completion of 9 years into the services to the patient, and thank you again for providing this opportunity. The objective of my talk today, essentially I am going to talk for about 30 minutes or so, because being audience you should know that for how much long the speaker should talk, right? I mean, so that your interest would be there. And the thing is, the objective of my presentation today is just to give you an overview of what are the latest clinical evidences, how you can implement those into your clinical practice, what are the global guidelines talking about that, and how you can get benefited. If you get benefited, your patient will automatically get benefited from that perspective. So with that particular context, let me start my presentation. The first part of my presentation is focusing on high medical value biomarkers in major cardiac ailments, right? Evolving role of various cardiac ailments. I'm going to focus upon 2 biomarkers only. Just to give you some introductory part, there might be different cardiac pathologies ranging from death of cardiac ventricle myocytes, or there can be myocardial stress. And in response to that particular pathology, various biomarkers are released into the bloodstream. The first part I'm going to talk about is myocardial stress. This is on which NT-proBNP is released from heart into the bloodstream. So before moving on to the concept of NT-proBNP biomarker, just let me talk about this condition which we all know called as heart failure. What is heart failure? It is essentially the compensatory mechanism with which heart tries to cope up with the failure. There are 2 different varieties of it. The acute onset heart failure and chronic heart failure. So this heart failure is very tricky affair. I mean, the cardiologists and general physicians here in the crowd would understand what I am trying to talk about. These symptoms are quite tricky, and that's why there is a need of multiple of natriuretic peptides, the biomarkers, ECG, and the imaging modality. We commonly call it as 2D echo. Next slide. So, if I really bring the global guideline perspective into the picture, what these guidelines are talking about. This is the screenshot which we took from ESC, European Society of Cardiology guideline. In chronic heart failure, next slide, as well as acute heart failure, this particular guideline clearly mentions the role of NT-proBNP, which is one of the natriuretic peptides. It goes one step ahead, also tells you what is the cutoff value. For acute condition, the cutoff value is 300 units. For chronic conditions, the cutoff value is 125 units. If the values are more than that, then you can diagnose the patient as suffering from either acute or chronic heart failure. So what is this anti-proBNP? I mean, I know that majority of the audience is sitting here, they are from the medical background and they do know we are studying it from, I mean, I used to study it from the second year of my MBBS days. This is one of the peptide which is secreted in response to myocardial stress, abnormal myocardial stress, right, or volume overload. Then, the proBNP is broken down into multiple parts. We are interested into the part which is biologically inactive, that is called as anti-proBNP. And this anti-proBNP, I mean, I'm sure that you are very well aware of this fact that it is considered as gold standard biomarker for the diagnosis of heart failure. The reputation is such that it's quite cardio-specific, and then concentration serves as an indication of heart failure. It can also help to titrate the doses and everything. The importance of measurement of anti-proBNP is so well recognized that it has been used as a surrogate biomarker in various clinical studies. Putting all these things together, let me re-emphasize that anti-proBNP is the one which everybody considers as gold standard biomarker when we talk about heart failure. But what exactly, in what things of heart failure, anti-proBNP can be used? And next few slides, I am going to quickly take you through that particular part. So this is the essentially this is the executive summary kind of slide, whereby what I have done is I have mentioned what are the various intended uses, recommended uses for this particular biomarker. I doubt that the people who are sitting in the last benches might be able to see that, but just to re-emphasize, if you can, next slide. So essentially it provides you, it helps the clinician in the entire continuum of the heart failure disease, right from diagnosis and detection, disease severity assessment, risk stratification, monitoring and risk assessment of cardiovascular diseases, cardiovascular risk in type 2 diabetes mellitus patients. So quickly taking you to the next part. So this is what I was talking about when I mentioned that there are different cutoff values considering the acute or chronic nature of heart failure. Let's say that if there is a non-acute setting, the heart failure disease, what we're going to talk about, it essentially, the cutoff value is 125 units. This is something that you should be very well aware of. And acute setting whereby the patient is admitted to the emergency department, the value, if it is more than 300 units, you can rule that patient in for heart failure. Now, what does this biomarker do? What is the crux of it? It essentially is saving the extra burden of doing 2D echocardiography. You really do not need 2D echography to diagnose that patient, confirm for heart failure. Of course, you need it at the next step when you want to finalize the etiology, right? So, it's as per one of the publications, is actually saving 40 to 45% of echocardiography costs. And in the countries from our part of the world whereby resources are quite limited, patient is spending from its own pocket, this becomes a very crucial part. So I know that so the idea of showing you this kind of graphs is not to tell you the details of it. I'm going to tell you the crux point of it, which you can take it as take home message. So the idea here is what they have found in this particular study is that highest mortality rates were observed in patients with acute heart failure and elevated anti-proBNP. In those patients where anti-proBNP was elevated, when the patient was showing symptoms of acute heart failure, they found out that it was correlated with highest mortality rate. So it is a direct indicator of the mortality rate of the heart failure. Next slide. Now, if I really talk about, you must be aware that heart failure patients have a tendency, if they are not treated properly or discharged very early, they have a tendency to get reactive, or they would essentially suffering from many morbidities and perhaps die in next 6 months or so. There are very high chances. Now the good idea about NT-proBNP is it has got a very strong prognostic value. The clinician has to measure the value of NT-proBNP while planning the discharge of that heart failure patient. And there is plenty of data which tells you that only NT-proBNP testing can give a very clear judgment about the fate of that particular heart failure. Now, this is not only about it. In fact, NT-proBNP can also help outpatient monitoring. There are plenty of studies. These are stages as per the American College of Cardiology staging of heart failure, whereby they have staged heart failure as per the severity. Right? There are multiple studies. You can read the names here. Just showcase. There are multiple studies out here. At every stage, NT-proBNP can help the clinician to understand whether the patient is responding to the given treatment and accordingly change the modality of the treatment. Now, this is the important thing. You need to understand that irrespective of the treatment given, NT-proBNP is the only biomarker or only indicator whereby clinician can judge the basis of clinical judgment what is the prediction of subsequent event. When I say event, I essentially mean the hospitalization, re-hospitalization because of the heart failure or death. With the help of these values, what is the baseline value, what is the discharge value, how is the trend, they can actually correlate what is the possibility of subsequent event. That's the power of this particular biomarker I wanted to focus. And I'm not saying this, all guidelines are talking about this. Now, if those who know heart failure in much more detail, that it is divided into three parts, with the help of your left ventricular ejection fraction. So, NT-proBNP is not meant only for preserved ejection fraction. That is a common misconception. Across the spectrum, it has the capability to tell you, whether the patient is responding to the given treatment. That is the outpatient monitoring. So, this is a very to have it in a biomarker comes very handy for the clinician. And putting everything together, now I am coming to the part which is very much interested to the doctors who are actually treating the patient. Right? Now there might come certain point whereby you have to take a decision whether the patient has to be switched to the class of drugs which is very popularly known as ARNI drugs. Now, these guidelines, right, ESC 2021 guidelines have given very clear that with the help of measurement of NT-proBNP, you can essentially take a decision whether to switch that patient to ARNI drugs or not. Now, what are its conditions? Right? The patients who are still symptomatic with ACE inhibitors or ARB therapy, and if they are presenting with elevated NT-proBNP level more than 600 units, or HF hospitalization within 1 year, and with plasma EMP more than 400 units. If either of these two conditions is present, clinician can take a proper clinical judgment and switch the patient to the ARNI treatment, which has become quite popular if I really talk about heart failure management. So, this is something I wanted to talk about from the heart failure perspective. So, as I mentioned in the previous, one of the earlier slides, that it will help the clinician across the continuum of the disease called as heart failure. Now, moving on to something very new, as the title suggests, what is the latest evidences? As my colleague Vishnu was mentioning, the R&D team continuously works upon whether this biomarker, which has been a gold standard, can be used for certain other things. So, the good thing is in 2020, about a bit more than 2 years, Roche got the exclusive regulatory approval for this extended claim. Now, this particular biomarker can be used to understand future cardiovascular risk in asymptomatic diabetic patients. Please remember this. These diabetic patients are not showing any signs and symptoms of heart failure right now, but they are at the higher risk of development of heart failure. Now, at least 6 months prior to the actual incidence that is heart failure happens, if the patient, diabetic patient is tested for NT-proBNP and the value is more than cutoff value of 125 units, that patient is at high risk of development of heart failure. I'll just take 2 more slides to explain this concept further. This is what I was talking about, just to simplify the thing. Now, this is some background. Why suddenly I am talking about diabetes and heart failure? Because diabetes doesn't come simply. You all that clinician, you know that diabetes brings along a lot of comorbidities. And cardiovascular diseases are one of the topmost comorbidities. If I talk about cardiovascular diseases, heart failure is the second most common comorbidity. That is the reason why a lot of studies have been done on this particular part. What it says is type 2 diabetes adds a constant risk of heart failure independent of age. Patient is suffering from diabetes, there is always a high chances of development of heart failure. Next slide. So what it has been found throughout multiple studies, I think these studies got published from 2011. So with the help of data from the last 9 years, Roche got the regulatory approval. What they have found is anti-propionic patient of type 2 diabetes mellitus has been found to be increased, and it can be used as a screening tool to identify the patients of TQDM who could benefit from cardioprotective treatment. So it will help the clinician to decide whether this particular patient needs an additional treatment for cardioprotection. Perhaps a SGLT inhibitor. Perhaps the patient can be changed from metformin to SGLT inhibitor. And to take that decision, this biomarker comes in. So what I was just talking about, the confidence got reflected from various recommendations. Now, what I have done here, I have taken screenshots of certain major global guidelines. Just to name a few, this is a chronological order in which recommendation was given. First of all, the American College of Cardiology gave the recommendation of usage of antipropionic in T2, followed by European Society of Cardiology, followed by the Japanese guidelines, and the most latest one, perhaps the most popular one, is American Diabetes Association. It has actually recommended the usage of antipropionic testing in all diabetes mellitus patients, and if there is need, repeat the testing within 1 year. Those values are less than 1 year. So this is the recommendation given by global guidelines, and just to let you know the initial experience, that basis on this recommendation, multiple countries across the world, including India, have started using this biomarker into their diabetes mellitus patient screening package. So this is what I wanted to convey here. Now, just to quickly give you the guideline, because you are clinicians, what you are worried about is tell me the cutoff value. Just tell me the cutoff value. Now, this is the simplified version of it. If the value of antipropionic is more than 125 units, that particular diabetic patient has got high risk of heart failure in the future. So the clinician can go for a cardiogram and then change treatment as per. If the values are less than 125, there is nothing to be done, at least for 1 year. Tests can be repeated after 1 year. If the values are more than 125 units, which are very high chances if diabetes is not controlled, then you have to do a treatment modification as this simple algorithm talks about. So this was it for the first part of my cardiology presentation. I'll quickly change the gears and I'll talk about the second most important disease of focus, that is acute myocardial infarction. I don't really have to tell how serious this disease is, considering the mortality. So what happens in a simplified algorithm? So the diagnosis or ruling out of a patient of AMI depends on 4 different things. One is, what is the clinical presentation of that patient, right? How is the spread of the pain across the chest, back and shoulder? Now that patient, as soon as he comes to the emergency department, first thing what is generally done is ECG, right? And then the next thing which is done is measurement of troponin biomarker. Now, troponin biomarker is done as soon as the patient is entered in the emergency department, and it is measured again as per the institute's policy, the followed protocol, after 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours. If the values are more than whatever the cutoff value says, the clinician can take a decision and rule the patient in for myocardial infarction or rule him out from the myocardial infarction. Right? So, what are these cardiac troponins? Right? What are the troponins I'm talking about? Just to jog your memory, I'm sure that you guys are very well aware that these are very much specific to cardiac issues, and are released in response to the death of cardiac muscle. That is necrosis. That is what happens in acute myocardial infarction. So, the fourth universal definition of myocardial infarction. This is the latest definition. Everybody follows this who is dealing in cardiology. It states very clearly to diagnose a patient with acute myocardial infarction, measurement of cardiac troponin D, possibly high sensitive version, has to be done, and it has to be accompanied with at least 5 parameters of that. Once this criteria is fulfilled, then only the patient can be diagnosed with the condition of acute myocardial infarction. And ESC guidelines, again, why I am saying this over and again is because this is perhaps one of the most recognized guidelines across globally. What they are saying that cardiac troponins are the biomarkers which actually complement clinical assessment and ECG. They are the ones which should be used because they are more sensitive and specific markers. And the level of cardiac troponins rise very rapidly. They stay for a longer duration. That makes them more suitable biomarker for the measurement of AMI. So, okay, I spoke about this condition known as AMI. I spoke about cardiac troponin D. But let me tell you, for what exactly in acute myocardial infarction, high sensitive troponin D can be. So again, across the continuum of disease, it can be used for the diagnosis and detection of acute myocardial infarction, for the discharge planning as given by the guidelines, for risk stratification, for treatment monitoring, for diagnosis and detection of cardiovascular risk in non-cardiac surgery, and for the risk prediction in asymptomatic population. So there are certain claims which are very new, which are approved last year only, and this is where I am going to talk about, what are the latest clinical evidences. But before moving to that, let me tell you something about basic, well-known properties of cardiac troponin D. Right. So there are two, versions of troponin 2. What we call it types of troponin I and troponin D. You might be aware of this theoretically because that's what we learned in our medical school days. So now a lot of studies have been conducted to understand which biomarker is better and which might be more sensitive, which might be more specific. This is the study which shows that troponin D has got higher sensitivity and negative predictive value to aid in the diagnosis of myocardial infarction at presentation to the emergency department. Essentially, it is more sensitive to detect the myocardial infarction when the patient is admitted into the emergency department, and the difference is quite significant. So as I mentioned, some institutes follow 1 hour algorithm, some institutes follow 3 hour, 6 hour algorithm. When I say algorithm, essentially they repeat the test after that particular duration of time to see the trend of the biomarker. Whether it is 3 hour, 1 hour or 6 hour algorithm, the clinical study says that the negative predictive value of troponin D is perhaps better than troponin. Now, with this basic information of cardiac troponin D, which is perhaps well known to the cardiology fraternity, these are something new things what I am going to talk about now. If you so next. So these are the 3 indications which have been approved just like few months ago, which essentially talk about the extended usage of cardiac troponin D in various conditions. What are these conditions? So what it says is that cardiac troponin D has been studied and recommended by European Society of Cardiology for early discharge planning. So you really don't have to keep your suspected AMI patient for more than 1 hour into your department. If your department is already facing crunch of resources, if you are facing issues with patient inflow management, I think this is the ideal thing to do. Within 1 hour, you can essentially tell whether the patient has to be ruled in or ruled out from the for the condition of AMI, or has to be kept under the observation in perhaps the tertiary hospital. Now, this is something very important, right? I mean, what it has been found out when they tested 1 hour algorithm for various biomarkers, troponin D versus troponin I, what they found out was troponin T was more efficient than troponin I when it came to the understanding how many patients are effectively ruled in for acute myocardial infarction. Now, again, the question comes generally, okay, now you are talking about myocardial infarction patients, but is this value consistent across all age groups? Whether this value will be similar to young patients, old patients, and whether it is sensitive enough for young patients as well, because naturally speaking, their values would be lower compared to the older people. Now, the studies, what do they mention is that it does perform better than troponin I, even if we talk about the younger generation or the younger patients or older patients across the spectrum of ages. Now, this is again very important, right? I mean, once the patient is suffering from myocardial infarction, the first and foremost comorbidity he brings along is renal dysfunction. It's one of the most comorbidities out there. Whether troponin performs equally well in patients who have deranged kidney function, the answer is yes. The clinical studies say that, and this study was published on more than 3,000 patients. They say that troponin T performs better even in the patients of renal dysfunction. Now, this was all about early discharge planning. The first new indication, what I was talking about, it can help the clinician for early discharge planning. What is the second new indication I was talking about? Non-cardiac surgery. Those who are into surgery, general surgeon or any other non-cardiac surgeon, they would know that whenever you perform the major non-cardiac surgery, like any ortho-related splenectomy, any stomach-related surgery, there are very high chances that the myocardium of that patient would get damaged to a certain extent. Studies say that there are 30% higher chances of those patients who underwent myocardial infarction, so that they would suffer from acute myocardial infarction after the discharge. That number is pretty scary. If this testing is done, cardiac troponin T testing is done peri-operatively at the time of surgery and perhaps 3 times after the surgery, right, for 3 days, that trend can tell clinician what is going to be the probability of death or any comorbidity in that particular patient. Now, please remember that these studies have been performed exclusively and recommended exclusively by BSc only on Roche's platform. The validation has done only on Roche's platform. So these values cannot be cross-matched with, let's say, troponin I or troponin T of any other company. So currently, in pharma world, what we call it as the patent license stays with Roche. So you cannot say that, okay, this value might be similar to Tropa as well, let me do it in that particular way. It doesn't work like that. And the last one which I wanted to talk about, this is very interesting thing. Now, with the help of these biomarkers, you can actually detect the future risk of cardiovascular diseases in completely asymptomatic patients. So, for example, I am standing in front of you, supposedly healthy, not showing any signs and symptoms of maybe future heart disease, right? But if I really dig my history, because my mother is hypertensive, she's already pre-diabetic. My father was having renal dysfunction. So I belong to this high risk category of asymptomatic patients, and so automatically I am more vulnerable to develop cardiovascular disease in the future, even though I am standing in front of them without showing any signs and symptoms. What can help me, or what can help a clinician to understand that risk? Perhaps measurement of cardiac. And that is what this new extended claim talks about. Right? If you measure the values and if this value fall in this cutoff ranges, you can actually judge the risk of development of cardiovascular diseases in us. So this is what I wanted to talk about in my first talk, that is related to cardiology. And maybe what we can do is that, because next topic is going to be completely different, maybe I'll take a liberty to break here for some time for the question and answer round. If you have any prominent question and answer, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm here after the meeting as well. We can conduct a discussion after that.
I shut up.
price and yeah, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. As soon as the myocardium is undergoing any abnormal stretch or volume overload, whether it is theoretical, the levels are critical. Of course, the next stage comes, then the person has to move for 2D echo to understand what is it. Sir?
It is only after late stage, not right now.
No, all myocardium, all ventricular myocarditis, not the atrial state, but ventricular state. Any Yes, so I mean, I understand, sir, where this question is coming from, because there is general understanding that antiproBNP values are falsely elevated in preserved ejection fraction relation. That's why clinicians tend to rely on this antiproBNP value. However, again, ESC guidelines have stated very clearly, because there are multiple pathologies involved in preserved ejection fraction, clinicians have to consider the higher values of antiproBNP while making the clinical judgment. They have gone one step ahead and they have mentioned that extended cutoff value for antiproBNP preserved ejection fraction. Sorry. Price, I think this is price question. Okay, sir. I mean, that particular part of the biomarker perhaps is not reflected in the scope of. But I think at least, Roche does not offer that particular biomarker per se. Perhaps I might have to come back to you on that particular part. My rating is very low on that particular.
Any more questions, sir?
Thank you very much. It was wonderful. What about in stroke and in renal failure? Because sometimes these changes are like in MI, in stroke also, as we all know. So in that case, is there the role of BNP in renal failure? What about the level? I mean, are they raised in stroke or renal?
So I think you are yeah. Okay. So I think one of the parts we covered, if you could go back intended So yes, sir. I mean, what you mentioned about the renal failure patients, right? So the extent, the claim says that cardiac risk stratification in those patients with chronic renal failure can be done with the help of troponin. If I talk about stroke, yes, there are multiple clinical studies, but just to let you know, there is no intended regulatory approval, the intended use, which has been approved by the regulatory body, thus, so far. So, yes, for the chronic renal failure patients, the values are definitely increased, and with the help of which further risk stratification can be done. That is the reason why I showed you one of the slides where it was measured in the patients of renal dysfunction, and it was found out to be quite sensitive. About gynecological disorders, infertility, pregnancy, menopause, there is biomarker for each and every condition. And again, the objective of this talk is not to cover each and every part of it. I am going to focus on certain key conditions and associated biomarkers. Next slide. So what I am going to cover today is I am going to talk about the conditions here, fertility, infertility, and the pregnancy related. If I talk about fertility part, so this is this is the sad truth of modern lifestyle what we are living into, right? So reproductive years vary from woman to woman, but there is an optimal time frame to have a baby. This has been the knowledge which has been passed on from generation to generation in the older days, but somehow in the pace of modern lifestyle, people tend to forget that. And now there is science to back that particular thing. What is the science? The science comes in the way of this particular biomarker, AMH. AMH is perhaps one of the most well-known biomarkers out there.
please audience, this is the topic, very important topic going on. It's silence, please.
Biomarker called as AMH. AMH is perhaps one of the very well-known biomarkers out there. If I talk about anti-Mullerian, if somebody can help me, what is AMH? Any volunteer from the audience? What is the full form of AMH? Everybody nodded when I said that perhaps it's the most well-known, but can somebody just stand up and tell what is AMH? AMH का बना है AMH is something which is known to everybody. Anti-Mullerian. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I just wanted to get the audience engaged so that. Sorry.
For the ovarian disease.
Of course. I was just asking. So what AMH can do is it can assist the gynecologists and women to understand the ovarian reserve levels in order to discuss the family planning. Please understand that this is very important for women wishing to become mother. The AMH levels can help clarify whether they can postpone the pregnancy or they have to have the pregnancy very soon. That is the main intention of usage of AMH, to assist the mother to take the informed decision. Now, what AMH does basically, so AMH levels provide an estimate of a number of eggs women have at that time of the testing. So patients and the doctors don't really have to wait till that particular time when the egg is matured to that particular level so that it would be visible in the imaging modalities. No, I mean, if it is done at that particular time, it will tell the sort of real world estimate of the number of eggs women are having. Low ovarian reserve can affect nearly 1 in 3 cases of infertility. That's how the severe problem is, right? If you can listen. Now, this is a graph which I really want you to pay attention to. What it says simply is that the decline over woman's lifetime, similar to decrease, the decline of AMH level across the age is similar to the decrease in egg count. And this is very much prominent after the age of 35. So this was the part which I quickly wanted to cover when I wanted to talk about the infertility and the relevance of AMH biomarker in that particular case. Now I am moving on to the part of pregnancy and I am moving on to the part of first trimester screening. I am going to talk about the Down syndrome. So Down syndrome, as you all know, is the genetic disorder. I am not going to go into the details. It's basically the extra copy of the genetic material, chromosome 21. This affected child might have is victim to multiple conditions in the after the birth. That's why it's always better to understand the possibility of Down syndrome before actual birth. Right? And the birth prevalence of Down syndrome increases with the maternal age. This image shows same thing. After the age of 35, it has been found out that the chances of Down syndrome affected babies becomes high. So what are the traditional ways of doing things, conventional ways of doing things? I mean, one can do CVS, chorionic villus sampling or amniocentesis in first trimester or second trimester respectively. But these traditional ways of doing things bring along certain limitations. They are invasive and they increase the risk of miscarriage. The gynecologists who are sitting here, the infertility specialists, they will agree to these particular points and these particular limitations, right? And this is something which has to be covered very effectively. And how do we do that? So, prenatal screening with the help of biomarker. They use non-invasive biochemical and imaging method to identify women at the high risk of carrying a Down syndrome child. Please remember, I am talking about both the things here: biomarker-based testing and imaging-based method. Right? Selection of these women to receive the invasive testing exposes fewer pregnancies to unnecessary risk. So if you are not using invasive technique, you essentially not putting that particular woman into the risk. Right? And that is the reason why combining diagnostic information from a panel of markers can increase the detection rate. Right? Now, what is this thing? What are these combined testing? What I'm trying to talk about. First trimester combined testing is an effective screening option for Down syndrome. First trimester screening algorithm receives up to 95% detection rate with only 5% false positive rate. Now, what are various factors measured in first trimester combined testing? Nuchal translucency, that is NT, which is done with the help of imaging modalities, free beta HCG, then pregnancy associated plasma protein A, we call as PAPA in short, and then maternal age. These are the four factors which are continuously measured when we talk about first trimester combined screening. Now, this is something, again, not going to focus too much on it. This is what NT, I really don't have to tell the gynecologist here that what does nuchal translucency looks like when we do the sonography. So this is what I wanted to focus upon from the biomarker perspective. So serum biomarkers like free beta HCG and PAPA measured in maternal circulation are used in first trimester screening algorithm. Very interesting correlation you will find here. So the levels of free beta HCG are raised in Down syndrome, while levels of PAPA biomarkers are decreased in Down syndrome. So this is the inverse correlation what they have, which is very important when we do. And so what this slide is telling you that these are the various combinations, right? I'm talking about combined various factors, double marker testing, triple marker testing, quadruple marker testing, serum integrated testing, entire integrated testing. What this graph is telling you is that what is the detection rate. Now you could see, if I talk about this combined testing whereby maternal age, nuchal translucency, free beta HCG and PAPA biomarkers, when they are combined, the detection rate increases up to 95%. This is what everybody wants to achieve if I talk from the clinician perspective. And there is a very important thing I wanted to show to you. I'm sorry, I actually did not copy the screenshot of this particular software or the report. I wanted to show it to you, but I'll just quickly tell you what it is. So this is the software which is pregnancy care software. We call it SSDW Lab 6 software, right? In this software, what you have to do, you have to input all the information, the NT values, all the biomarker values, the maternal age, and with the help of which the appropriate, it provides the comprehensive solution for first trimester risk assessment for pre-eclampsia and Down syndrome. So I'm moving one step ahead here. With Down syndrome, it can also tell what is the important, what are the chances of pre-eclampsia. So this is which has been recommended by various guidelines such as ACOG and FMF as well. FMF is Fetal Medicine Foundation guidelines. They also say that these biomarkers, free beta HCG and PAPA, along with nuchal translucency and maternal age, should be considered while doing first trimester testing for the maximum detection of the disease. And this is this is just showing you that what Roche's solution is out there. Basically, talking about the technical perspective, what is the measuring rate, sample material and sample volume. I mean, this is something the lab head can take care about, the head of biochemistry, but as a clinician, you might want to know this particular fact as well. And again, the same thing, the turnaround time is very small, high onboard stability, as my colleague Vishnu was talking about. These particular biomarkers do bring that kind of advantages as well, lower sample volume and so this was it from the first trimester screening perspective, women's health perspective. Now, I'm quickly moving on. I'm not going to take more than, let's say, 5 minutes on this particular topic. But what we thought while creating this particular slide deck, and this is the topic which is perhaps interesting to all specialties out there. I'm talking about thyroid diseases, right? I mean, you must be seeing a lot of patients of thyroid diseases across your specialties. High medical. Yeah. So this is high medical values biomarkers in autoimmune disease of thyroid. So this is just the burden burden of the disease. Sorry, there is glitch in the animation sequence here. What it tells is that what is the burden of disease. We really don't have to tell you again, but for you particularly, from the people of Nepal, we have created another slide just to tell you what is the burden. Next slide. So this is the data, published data in various articles, which tells you what is the prevalence of thyroid dysfunction in Nepal. Without any surprise, because it mimics the global pattern, thyroid dysfunction rates perhaps the highest one when we talk about the prevalence. Prevalence is higher in females compared to males. Right? These are common things which global data and Nepalese data say, right? And this is something you need to understand when you want to go deeper into this particular aspect. So this is a very busy slide, but let me break it down for you. Perhaps the simplest one to understand. What is the suggested algorithm, right? What is the suggested algorithm with the help of these biomarkers? The most common, the first biomarker which is generally tested is TSH, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. And then basis on the interpretation of this value, whether it is increase or decrease, further free T4 or T4 testing is done, right? And then basis of their values, T3 testings are done. And once you follow this algorithm, at the end of this sequence, you will find out that what is this particular type of thyroid disease that particular patient is facing. I really wanted to pause on this particular slide so that you can take pictures, but I'm really not sure whether your camera can capture this, this slide out here. Now, one thing what I wanted to mention here, that when the values of TSH are mentioned, and again, T4 values are changed as well, there are certain biomarkers like anti-TSHR or anti-TP or anti-TG. They can be measured to understand whether the patients are suffering from any autoimmune thyroid disorders as well. What are those autoimmune thyroid disorders? They can be Graves' disease, Hashimoto's thyroidism, and autoimmune thyroidism by themselves. So next slide, please. Perhaps the next slide will give you the better idea. Yeah, so this is wanted to talk about in drugs, that autoimmunity of thyroid, right? So this is 3 primary thyroid antigens are involved in pathogenesis of autoimmune thyroid disease. One is thyroglobulin, thyroperoxidase, and TSS receptor. High thyroid autoantibody concentrations are usually found in the serums of patients of autoimmune thyroid disease. However, they be present in unexpected scenarios as well, right? In various kind of diseases, there would be various levels of this autoimmune biomarkers as well. So this is the table you might want to remember. This is very well known in various medical textbooks and internet resources, with the help of which you can actually pinpoint what kind of thyroid autoimmune disorder is out there. But double-edged sword, it also might lead to dilemmas in interpretation. So one crux point, as Dr. Sanjay Kalra, who is one of the most prominent endocrinologists from India, says that if you really want to diagnose or understand thyroid disease, biomarkers are certainly of great help, but you need to correlate those values with the clinical representation. Until and unless you do that, you cannot diagnose or do the better judgment of that particular. And with this, I will end my this part of my presentation as well. And I sincerely hope that what I covered in last 40 minutes or so, covering cardiology, women's health, and thyroid markers, that was quite helpful to you to sort of get your knowledge upgraded about this biomarkers. And thank you so very much for your patience.
We'd like to close the session here, and before we close the session, first of all, we'd like to thank all the audience for the participation, and I'd like to congratulate all the speakers for the excellent presentation. And on behalf of myself and our chair, we'd like to heartfelt thanks to your people, Mr. Pankar, and the whole family for giving this golden opportunity to share the session and to be with you. And thank you very much. And
पाइरहेका छौँ र थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच फर अल भेरी इन्फर्मेटिभ प्रेजेन्टेसन अल प्रेजेन्टर। अब हामी कार्यक्रमको अन्त्यतर्फ रहेका छौँ र यहाँ आज प्रेजेन्ट गर्नुहुने प्रेजेन्टरज्यूहरूलाई चाहिँ टोकन अफ लभ वितरण गरिदिनु हुनको लागि म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। सर्वप्रथम टोकन अफ लभ वितरण गरिदिनु हुनको लागि आदरणीय डाक्टर साहब गिरिधारी शर्मा डाक्टर साहबलाई म चाहन्छु। सरलाई टोकन अफ लभ वितरण गरिदिनु म अनुरोध गर्न चाहन्छु। थ्याङ्क यू भेरी भेरी मच। थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच। सँगसँगै मलाई हाम्रो चेयरम्यान ठाकुर सरले बुके प्रदान गर्यो। थ्याङ्क यू बुके प्रदान गरिदिनु अनुरोध सदर सरलाई पनि बुके ग्रहण गरिदिनुको लागि चाहिँ म हार्दिक धन्यवाद चाहन्छु। धन्यवाद। आफ्नो 9 वार्षिक उत्सव मनाइरहेको सन्दर्भमा आयोजना गरेको एससिएम प्रोग्राममा पाल्नु हुने सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरूलाई हामी हृदयदेखि धन्यवाद कृतज्ञता ज्ञापन गर्न चाहन्छु र सँगसँगै हाम्रो इन्भिटेसनलाई चाहिँ सहर्ष स्वीकार गरेर रोज इन्डियाबाट चाहिँ रिप्रेजेन्ट गरेर आदरणीय प्रेजेन्ट चाहन्छु र सँगसँगै क्वालिटी विकेको रूपमा रहनुहुने आदरणीय सुस्थापक सरले आफ्ना माग्न चाहन्छु र यहाँ पाल्नुहुने सम्पूर्ण महानुभावहरूलाई धेरै 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 हृदयदेखि धन्यवाद दिँदै अब हामी यस कार्यक्रमलाई चाहिँ औपचारिक रूपमा यहीँ समापन गरेर अब रात्रिकालीन भोजमा सबैजनालाई सरिक भइदिनुको लागि चाहिँ हार्दिक अनुरोध चाहन्छु। हस्त धन्यवाद, नमस्कार।